Hello and welcome back to another episode of Oh and That's a Bad Miss. And my god, what a week we've had. The World Championships always brings some sort of surprise, but we've had shock after shock after shock, an incredible match after incredible match. This has got to be one of the greatest World Championships we've had in a good few years, and that includes last year with Marc Williams versus John Higgins final. Now, before we get into what we've seen in the past week, just got to, of course, mention reddit.com/r/snooker. It's a hive mind of snooker at the moment. It's absolutely buzzing. Our predictions tournament has closed now, but the lovely people at Ripstone Games, who created Snooker 19, have stepped in and are offering the prize of a signed copy of Snooker 19 for the winner of that prediction series. Now, obviously you can't enter that as it's closed and the tournament's already in play. But in the future, we will be working with Ripstone Games again in order to provide a competition to win a copy of Snooker 19. So if you want to head over there to have a look at when you can win a copy and any other things, we've got discussion threads with 500 comments in them. We've had great little clips, statistical breakdowns, what to watch if you've only got an hour to watch snooker a day. If you've missed a match and you're not sure, do I want to go back and watch that? Have a look at the thread on the top of the subreddit. So head over there, reddit.com/r/snooker for all your snooker talk. So, when I left you last week, I mentioned that James Cahill was playing against Ronnie O'Sullivan, and I believe my exact words were, Cahill seems to be holding his own. Now, Cahill did a little bit more than hold his own, and the first amateur to ever reach the World Championships final stage at the Crucible knocked out the world number one Ronnie O'Sullivan 10-8. And that is, without a doubt, the biggest shock in Crucible history. Now, obviously, there's been low-ranked players upsetting high-ranked players, but there's never been a player who didn't have a rank knocking out the world number one. Absolutely spectacular. Obviously, a lot of people have been calling James Cahill an amateur, which makes it sound like he's just walked in from a snooker club and decided, I'll have a go, I'll try and beat the world number one. But no, James Cahill is a talented player in his own right, and he's been on and off the tour quite a lot over the last few seasons. Obviously, no one still saw this coming, and O'Sullivan was not well at all, clearly. He was ill by the looks of it. He said he caught a little virus, and he did look very tired. But don't let that take anything away from James Cahill. Absolutely incredible, and I'm absolutely chuffed for the lad. Takes home a tidy bit of prize money for making it to the next round, and he will be back, I guarantee it, over the next few years. Elsewhere in the first round, we had David Gilbert continue his incredible season by beating Joe Perry 10-7. Now, a lot of people going in saw the name Joe Perry and thought, well, he's consistently in the top 16. I know he's not quite in the top 16 at the moment. David Gilbert is the seed in that match, but was still the underdog, according to a lot of bookies. And the prediction tournament that I mentioned before, he was the least backed seed to win, and yet he still did it. I think that shows that a lot of people don't take into consideration the season that the players have had. Dave Gilbert has been making finals of ranking events three times this season. Joe Perry's had a very lacklustre season by his standards and has therefore dropped out of the top 16. And personally, no real surprise to see Dave Gilbert march through. Now, Mark Selby just about survived his first round match against Zhao Jingtong. 10-7 it was, which definitely doesn't quite tell the whole story, because Zhao, I'm so bad at pronouncing these names. Zhao was knocking in some spectacular long pots and then missing the blacks off the spot. Selby was better than he has been this season, but still not back to his best by any sense of the word. As you'll see in the second round, didn't go too well for Selby. But I think Zhao might be one of those players from China who makes it into the top 16 this time next year or a couple of years' time. I think once one of them does it, once one of the new generation of Chinese players. Obviously, Ding's been doing it for a while, but as soon as one of the Yan Bingtaos, Lu Haoshan, Zhao Jingtong, Zhao Yulong, once one of them make it to the top 16, I think a couple might follow them. They just need that belief that they can make it and do it. Stuart Bingham, my God, what a match. Stuart Bingham versus Graham Dott. If you didn't see that, you've missed out on something. Stuart Bingham went 8-1 up after the first session, which is obviously a hell of a lead in a first to 10 match. But then Graham Dott came out, won the first 3 frames of the session, brought it back to 8-4, and then Bingham came out, won the last match before the mid-session interval to bring it to 9-4. Obviously, you're thinking, that's it. Get home, short match, short evening session, 9-4, Bingham only needs 1 more, Dott still needs 6. And yet Dott was playing incredible snooker. Bingham made some silly mistakes, including in the 16th frame. Bingham missed the red that was... he was trying to catch a very thin edge of it, but you could clearly see it. So the referee, after his second miss, said, I'll have to warn you, if you miss this again, you can see the frame. And Bingham went for the same shot, went for the thin edge, played it very slowly, which leaves yourself open to the cue ball sliding off a little bit. Obviously, you'd expect that not to happen at this level, but if it's already happened twice, why play it at such a slow pace? He missed the red. The frame was given to Graham Dott. So Graham Dott didn't have to do anything, and Stuart Bingham gave away the frame to his opponent. Dott ended up bringing it back to 9 frames apiece, went to a decider, only for Stuart Bingham to win that decider. I was devastated for Graham Dott. He's a personal favourite of mine, but yeah, quite unfortunate. But Stuart Bingham has been looking good, and it would have been a bit of a disservice for him to go out in the first round after the season he's had and the form he's showing at the moment. He's currently tied 6 apiece with John Higgins in the second round as I'm recording this today. Jud Trump, another player currently in a match, tied 6 apiece with Ding Junhui, was not quite at the same level he was in the Masters. If you remember when he won the Masters, I was saying that he'd matured a lot in his game. He was not taking any silly shots. He was not letting his emotions get the best of him. He was no more naughty snooker when it wasn't necessary. And he sort of half reverted back to that against Thepchai Unnu of Thailand. Maybe it's because Unnu is also the type of player who lets the speed of his game sometimes get in the way of his thinking and sometimes takes on the wrong shot. So I think maybe Trump sort of fell to Unnu's level, and that went to a decider with Trump just about winning. Obviously, that was an incredibly quick match with Unnu's average shot time being around 17 seconds or so. Spectacular, really. That was a fun match to watch, and I don't think there's been a single match that you could consider boring this tournament. It's been spectacular, I must say. Another surprise was the world number 6, Marc Allen, who won the Masters last year, and he lost to Zhao Yulong. Obviously, Yulong is one of the best Chinese players out there at the moment, but it's only his second appearance at the Crucible. You would have thought the nerves would get the best of him, but Yulong marches through to the second round in what's got to be said, a very poor performance from Marc Allen. And while I'm on the subject of young Chinese players, can someone please tell Dennis Taylor just to say their names or to say anything else than young Chinese player? You must hear it 10, 20, 30 times every single match. Dennis Taylor referring to them as this young Chinese player, this young Chinese star, this young star, this young Chinese player. It's absolutely infuriating because they have a name and you don't refer to the English players as young English players. Maybe Dennis Taylor has seen his best days in commentary. He's starting to grate on quite a lot of people, I think. Again, tell me what you guys think. Maybe I'm watching too much snooker at the moment and the little things are starting to grate on me. Barry Hawkins, absolutely on fire as he marched straight past. He barely even had to play against Li Hang, winning 10-1, nearly another whitewash for this World Championships. That's 2 matches in the first round that finished 10-1 and 1 that finished in a whitewash. Li Hang celebrating his 1 frame as if he'd won the World Championships. It was brilliant. And Barry Hawkins is playing some incredible snooker and is showing that he's clearly underrated in the odds of winning, and I think he could be a dark horse to go really far. I mean, he shouldn't be a dark horse. When you look at it, in the last 6 years, I think he's reached 2 semi-finals, 1 final, and the quarterfinals every other time, if I'm not mistaken. He's got an incredible record at the World Championships, and yet he's one of those players people just don't seem to expect to make it that far every year. So, and the way he's playing today against Kyren Wilson in the second round, unbelievable. Another seed fell as Jack Lisowski was simply outplayed by Ali Carter. Jack obviously let the occasion get to him. It was only his second time at the Crucible, and I think he's proved he still has a lot of maturing to do. And I know it's a bit of a cliche at this point, but he is so much like a young Trump. I know they practice together. I think they're both Bristol boys. They have a lot in common, and that's not necessarily a good thing. If you look at where Trump is now in his 30s, still not having won the World Championships, having such a long break between winning the UK Championships and winning the Masters. Should Lisowski change his style of play? Probably not. Because once you change your style of play, maybe you're not going to be as good as you are now. But maybe he should sort of not take as much influence from Trump. Although obviously it's probably not a decision he's making to be like Trump. It might just be subconscious. We'll have to wait and see where Lisowski goes. Obviously, still yet to win a ranking event, reaching 2 finals this season. We'll see where he goes next season. I see next season as being an absolutely vital in Lisowski's career. It's probably the biggest season of his career so far. It could be one where he either finally reaches his potential, or it could be one where he goes down the same path as Trump of never quite making it. Kyren Wilson finishes up the first round against Scott Donaldson. It went about as expected. Donaldson getting 4 frames, but Kyren Wilson finishing the match 10-4 victor. It was probably the nicest draw of the first round when you look back at it now. Donaldson, a debutant at the Crucible, and not even having that great of a season. He played incredibly well, obviously, to get it through the qualifiers, but it would have been a huge surprise to see Donaldson make it into the second round. Now, onto the second round, and you think maybe the shocks are over, but Dave Gilbert knocks out defending champion Marc Williams. Obviously, Williams had the issues with World Snooker during the build-up and during the first week of the World Championships, and then the night before his deciding session with David Gilbert, he was taken to A&E with chest pain. The doctor said it was nothing to do with his heart. I don't think he's released exactly what the issue was. But maybe it's time Marc Williams sort of slow down a bit. He's getting on a bit, and he can't be going out on the piss as much as he is, living off kebabs. Yeah, it's a difficult one, because obviously Marc Williams, he's a cheeky chappy. He's gone on the piss. He's only just come down to play in the next World Championships. But maybe it's time he left that life behind a bit, because he does have a couple of kids, and I think maybe suffering those chest pains and having to be taken to A&E may ground him a bit. And it'll be good to see for next season, because he's had a bit of a letdown of a season as defending champion, whether he can, go back to his best again. Barry Hawkins is currently 6-2 up on Kyren Wilson in the second round. And like I said, Hawkins playing unbelievable snooker. 4 centuries in the first session against Wilson. Wilson incredibly lucky to get the 2 frames. Alan McManus put it best in commentary, saying that although it's 6-2, Wilson will be weirdly happy about that, because the way Hawkins was playing, it's a miracle he got 2 frames. And the 6 that Barry won, Kyren couldn't really have done anything. It was a 98% shot success from Barry Hawkins. That's enough to win any match. Pretty much any match. You'd have to have like a 98 and above shot percentage to beat a 98% shot percentage from your opponent. Again, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to say Barry Hawkins for the final. I know There's a lot of matches left to go, but this time next week we will be on the first session of the final, and I would be shocked not to see Barry Hawkins there if he continues playing the way he has, and I'd love to see him there. It seems like such a down-to-earth lad, a cool guy, and I would be absolutely ecstatic to see him make it to the final. Sean Murphy's nightmare season came to a disappointing end, losing to Robertson 13-6. Robertson, alongside Barry Hawkins, looks absolutely unstoppable. Robertson's had a great season, as we all know. I mentioned it before that I have Neil Robertson to win the title in my prediction competition. And he's just playing incredibly. To beat Sean Murphy 13-6, and it's not like Murphy was struggling for form now, because he whitewashed his opponent in the first round, and he was on for a 147. Murphy, he actually requested the middle screen to be lifted so the other side of the crowd could watch. Obviously that 147 was unsuccessful. I think we've had 3 or 4 147 attempts unsuccessful now, with Stuart Bingham having one around an hour ago, missing on the final red, and Barry Hawkins also today missing on a break of 104. It's the quality of snooker has been spectacular, honestly, and Sean Murphy already with the BBC commentating, so I don't think it's too much of an issue for him to lose this early in the World Championships, but he'll definitely be hoping for a more successful tournament and more successful season next season. Mark Selby, again, shocking form, and loses to Gary Wilson in the second round. Wilson obviously made it through against Luca Bracel, as I mentioned last week, in the first round in that huge hour and 20 odd minute frame, and went on to beat Mark Selby 13-10, I believe it was. Spectacular, to be honest. Gary Wilson played very well. Mark Selby played relatively well, but obviously still not back to his best. And it's a shame, because after this World Championships, Mark Selby's $500,000 or however much it was for winning the world title 2 years ago is removed from his ranking points. So seeing Mark Selby drop down the ladder is going to be a shock, and hopefully that wakes him up and he starts to perform a bit better next season, but it's a slippery slope he's already on, and it's going to be difficult for him to turn it around. Now, with Wilson making it through against Selby, he will face either Zhao Yulong or Ali Carter in the quarterfinals, which means there is a guaranteed qualifier going into the semi-finals. Could a qualifier win for the first time since Sean Murphy in 2005? I believe he won it. I wouldn't be overly surprised, but I don't think so. But what do you guys think? Do you think we could have a qualifier win the world title? And obviously that's only ever happened twice in history. Terry Griffiths years ago, and Sean Murphy in 2005. It's been 14 years. Maybe we're due one. And the final second round match that we've had completed to this point was Stephen Maguire just about holding off James Cahill in an absolutely spectacular match. That's one where you've got to go and watch right now. And if you've only got an hour, go watch the last 2 frames. The quality wasn't quite there. Some of the misses were horrific, but it went to a deciding frame. James Cahill, a lot of people saw him defeating Ronnie and then sort of falling apart, like a lot of the shock winners do. But he didn't. He held his own against Stephen Maguire. Maguire could have escaped Cahill quite a few times during the match, but Cahill was hanging on. He didn't lead until right at the end of the match, and unfortunately Maguire did just about make it across that finishing line in the final frame. Absolutely chuffed for Cahill, like I said in the first round. It's incredible to see that in snooker. We know snooker's a sport where you can never tell what's quite going to happen, but I don't think anyone saw James Cahill making it to the second round and nearly making it to the quarterfinals. Absolutely chuffed for the lad, and I guarantee we'll see more of him in the future. That's the star for the future, definitely. What do you guys think? Do you think he'll be one for the future, or do you think this is a one-time showing? Do you think this is going to be his moment in 30, 40 years' time? He'll sit back and think, oh, Remember that time I beat Ronnie O'Sullivan and then did nothing else in snooker? I hope not, because personally I'd be absolutely thrilled to see him return to the World Championships next season, and if not next season, the season after. So that's about it. That's where we are at the moment in the World Championships. As I mentioned, this time next week we will be at the final. It seems to fly by quicker every year. I hope you're enjoying the World Championships. And again, if you want to go talk to people about it, head to reddit.com/r/snooker. And yeah. Oh, I had a couple of people asking about the half marathon. I did complete it in just over 2 hours, 2 hours 10 minutes, which I thought was okay for my very first half marathon. Thank you guys for asking, by the way. It's strange to know that some people do listen to right at the end. Yeah, so thanks for the support as ever. Yeah, I think that's about it. And next week into the final. Christ, it's almost over already. Hope you guys are enjoying it, and I will see you next week.